I want to bring in now a guy named Ed Dowd, who I think the nation is going to start to really pay attention to, because this is quite serious. Ed is a very sophisticated member of the global investment community. He's worked at some of the finest firms on Wall Street. He's grown some of the finest firms on Wall Street. You know, I would say maybe we're not fans of some of those firms, but I digress. That's a topic for a different day. And Ed's got a brilliant theory of the case of exactly what's going on. So I want to introduce Ed Dowd, and I want to thank Dr. Malone for introducing us. Ed, first off, I just want to go through your bona fides, because I want to make sure people, you're not just some guy day trading and screaming at your TV set. Walk through quickly what your bona fides are in this area.
I started my career after going to Notre Dame at HSBC Securities in Chicago, selling fixed income securities, treasuries, mortgage backs, all sorts of different types of things. So I learned the capital markets at a very young age, specifically the credit markets. Went back to business school, wanted to get into equities, ended up at DLJ for 2 years in equity research, doing electric utilities, where I witnessed the dot-com boom and some malfeasance that went on all over the place. Then I moved up to Boston, where I joined Independence Investments as a tech investor, tech analyst. I was one of the outspoken ones saying this is a bubble and things are going to end poorly. And because of that and being early, I was able to leverage that into a job at BlackRock as a portfolio manager in 2002. And I worked there for 10 years until 2012, running a large cap growth portfolio. We took the product from 2 billion to 14 billion because our track record was excellent. So I've seen three what I call three frauds: the corporate fraud of the dot-com boom, the bank fraud of the great financial recession, and I believe the fraud has moved on to central banks and governments, because that's the nature of our monetary system. You have to constantly create credit to keep this thing going.
Okay, hang on, because this is the third case. I just want to make sure the audience understands that. That is outside of maybe Notre Dame. I'm kidding. I'm a big Irish fan. But that is a who's who. DLJ, I mean, each one of these is like the platinum. DLJ was known as an equity research firm. I mean, everything. BlackRock, growing the portfolio. So you've gone through two of the biggest financial perturbations in the history of this republic: the dot-com implosion in 2000, and also the great financial crisis of 2008. And remember, we just had Christopher Leonard on the other day, the author of The Lords of Easy Credit, the new book, and I recommend that book. Is now 56. It was 1,000 when he came on the show. It's 56 on the Amazon list. I recommend everybody in this audience buy that book. So Ed Dowd, walk us through your theory of the case of where we are today and what is the crisis that we're in the middle of, or at the beginning of.
So from a global macro perspective, I believe the global debt bubble is at its peak, and it's becoming apparent given what's going on across the globe that we're at the end. And due to that fact, we're going to see lots of crazy things in the financial markets. I think we're going to see the credit markets become unhinged, the equity markets become unhinged. The Fed got a reprieve from COVID when they were able to, the cover of COVID, print 65% more money to keep this thing afloat. But we're at the end days here. And a lot of what you're seeing in the response from global governments is what I believe is setting up a system to, under the guise of medical tyranny, to prevent the riots that are going to ensue once this thing all unwinds. That's my personal belief, and I watch what people do, know what they say. Then I also have a thesis as to what is going on at Pfizer and Moderna and how those companies are probably fraudulent, and there's these vaccines were pushed through, and I think the clinical trial data is fraud. We can talk about either one of those topics.
Well, hang over a second. So in the macro, and this is the theory of people like Christopher Leonard and yourself, that this has all been debt financed, and we're at the end of that, because there's only so much you can print. There's only so much there's almost so much of this fiat currency that people will take. From that, you've got a subset of that, and this is what's so shocking. Since you're a pretty good guy about understanding a company how to go long. You're saying these are not companies to go long in right now. Your statement, I just want to make sure that your words, not mine. You believe that some of the biggest and most powerful and respected names in pharmaceuticals, and that would be Pfizer and Moderna and others, are essentially modern versions of Enron. Is that your theory of the case?
Correct. And I want to liken what's gone on here to what happened in the great financial crisis. We had rating agencies, third-party verification sources that were able to perpetuate the fraud because the money got too big. Their institutions became corrupted with the institutional imperative, and they got AAA ratings, which we all know in hindsight, those were not AAA ratings. Let's move forward to today. The FDA is the trusted third-party verification of pharmaceutical products. 50% of their budget comes from pharma. And I believe due to the institutional imperative that was in place at the time, that and the speed with which they tried to approve these products with this unproven technology, fraud did occur. And what's my proof of that? The FDA, together with Pfizer, are trying to hide the clinical data. And it's come out recently in late fall, maybe end of summer, that the all-cause mortality endpoint for the Pfizer product failed. What does that mean? Well, that means there were more deaths in the vaccine group than the placebo group. Normally, in such a case, you have no drug approval for such drugs. It's the gold standard. I've been told by all my people in the biotech industry, once that data started coming out, they were horrified, and the people who were vaxxed aren't going to get boosted, and the people who were unvaxxed weren't going to get it. So it all starts with all-cause mortality. You've had Steve Kershaw and Dr. Malone on talking about the side effects they're seeing, the VAERS database. Well, it came to my knowledge in early January that the actuarials are seeing things, the insurance companies.
Ed, just let's put a pin in it right there. We got to take a short commercial break. We'll return with Ed Dowd, formerly of BlackRock, a portfolio manager, making his theory of the case of the issues, the Enron type issues with Big Pharma. Next in the War Room.